12:35. Hello, welcome everyone. In this session, we are going to deal with service provision competence and precisely with pricing and negotiating. My name is Martina Mayer, and we will discuss how freelance translators can build long-term economic stability. If any questions are coming up during my speech, just use the chat. Please put them into the chat if there are many of them. Our technical assistant, Noah, will structure them for us, and I will try to answer as many of them in a short Q&A in the end. And please allow me still another word. If you see me doing strange things with my hands, we have a fly in here. I tried to chase it, but I couldn't get it. And it is really torturing me. So just don't ask yourself any questions. It's the fly in here. So what is our purpose today in this session? First, I will introduce myself and tell you a few things about my own beginnings as a freelance translator in the language industry and about my way of working back then. My experience, a little bit problematic one, will help to outline on my slides some general recommendations for those of you just starting out now in the industry. Secondly, we are going to briefly look at a few misconceptions about the translation market and consequently deal with negative impact on the pricing structure in our industry. Thirdly, we are going to talk about typical mistakes translators make in pricing and negotiating. And fourthly, some hints on how to calculate and negotiate more successfully. The whole session will rather serve as an introduction, as an overview. If things are not perfectly clear to you, again, just use the Q&A session or use my mail. You have it on all of the slides and you can just get in touch with me for any further questions if there are any. So let me introduce myself in a few sentences. I am a senior lecturer at the University of Innsbruck, but some years ago, I still used to work as a freelance translator besides this university activity, mainly with the language pair French and German. I am a person who can quickly get bored, and that's why in the very beginning I translated texts in various fields without any logical connection between them. So I did tourism, arts, economics, culture, geology, food industry, cheese. I translated many texts about cheese because cheese is important in France, isn't it? Transportation, fashion, lifestyle. So there was a little bit of everything. I started to train future translators at university quite soon in my own career. And at the same time, I also worked with children's literature, helping to adapt German textbooks to schools in Austria to Austrian German. And still at the same time, as a freelancer, I categorically excluded from my service portfolio every subject that I didn't like, but that would have offered good income prospects. For example, I excluded medicine, pharmaceutics, information technology, or even law. Honestly, there was quite a lack of strategic reflection in all of that. In my first years of activity, I actually did everything that is detrimental to the economic success of a freelance translator. I widely mixed a wide variety of topics. I didn't create synergies. Instead of focusing on a homogeneous group of clients, which would certainly have simplified processes in my day-to-day life, I had to find efficient work processes with many different types of clients. And to resume everything, in fact, I made myself a difficult time because I did what I really enjoyed without having a bigger master plan. Doing what I enjoyed was a good thing, but a master plan would have been very, very nice. I have learned a lot since then. It is said that anyone who works like this will encounter problems concerning work-life balance and income structure in freelancing. What I did is, let's say, unnecessarily time consuming, and it would have been much more intelligent to streamline processes. It helps you to get the most out of your working hours and ultimately of your lifetime. That's extremely important because with time going by, time is getting more and more precious. So, therefore, if you are now at the beginning of your career, It might be helpful for you to choose a few well-defined working fields to build up routines whilst practicing translation or other language and culture-related services. That will help you to become more confident about the good quality of your work and finally also to become faster. Now, at the same time, please be aware of the word faster. Please don't fall for a widespread misconception. Many freelance translators do think that those who are able to produce many translations and many words in a short time automatically earn good money. Of course, a good working rhythm is one of the fundamentals of a good income. But in general, we know that hurrying does not foster the good quality of work. So please be aware of that mechanism. And anyway, there are experienced translators who have a good stock of clients and of requests, who are able to serve many clients in well used, efficient working hours, but who still do not earn enough to live a prosperous life, and who therefore need to translate always more and more, which might even lead them into burnout. Sadly, there are quite a few of them. The question is why? So let's address a few misconceptions and a few big issues that have negative impact on the market. Translation is subject to a globalized and not protected market if we leave legal translation aside. Let's be clear. Anyone who feels competent, can offer language services without having obtained any adequate training or without being able to do critical reflection on the profession as a whole, on professional ethics, or on market structures. At the same time, there are many translators living in countries with a very low cost of living, and they offer their services in competition to European-based translators whose lives are much more expensive to sustain and who really need better prices to be able to survive. But even within Europe, there is a price gap and a cost gap of living. If translators from European countries with a lower income structure work for clients in countries with a higher income structure, then they would do very well to benefit from the higher price tolerance instead of importing their own low prices into the expensive markets, thereby damaging them. In doing so, they miss at the same time the opportunity to benefit from the higher prosperity of others, which is a pity. In addition, European translators are afraid of being undercut in their prices and therefore not getting enough orders. What is their, let's say, logical reaction? Well, a dangerous one. They actively enter the price spiral and they lower their prices in order to generate more workflow. But in reality, they are only hurting themselves as well as the entire market. None of this is good for our price levels. And indeed, we are currently living in the context of a price spiral that rather goes downwards. So please, please, please be aware of that. However, if you've heard that language services are a completely unprofitable business, that you cannot make a living from, that's quite wrong. If you position yourself intelligently with a good sense for the value of your own competences and of your own work, you really can make a decent living as a freelancer. You just need to be aware of typical mistakes in pricing and negotiating, and you need to avoid them. Okay, so let's talk about these. So many freelancers launch their activity without having considered in advance how much money they actually need for themselves. And of course, many freelancers also have problems with taking into account social security charges and taxes in their countries. Then it makes a really big difference whether you are talking about gross or net income, and even a bigger one when it comes to setting sales targets or not setting them. Especially beginners often feel lost there due to a lack of experience. So instead of focusing on their own needs first, they study price lists provided by professional associations, or they study offer from agencies or from other freelancers, which is not totally wrong. I mean, we need to be informed, of course, but it might be dangerous because we are getting wrong pictures of prices by doing that. Newcomers may also research the supposed going rates in their specialized areas, for instance, by gathering information from confirmed translators, and they might discover that the mentioned rates are often terribly low. Well, even experienced translators might struggle with the discomfort with pricing if they didn't have adequate training in business strategies, which is quite normal. Furthermore, some freelancers might also not be aware of the fact that one and the same order coming initially from a direct client with a good price level sometimes passes through the hands of not just one but even several agencies, all of them being subcontractors who have to cut off a profit margin, which means that the assignment arrives at the freelancer at the very lowest price. As a result, many freelancers tend to be stressed right from the beginning of their activity, being put under time and price pressure. But there is even more. Young professionals often can't really estimate how much time they are going to invest in a certain time of language service. And they are not aware of the fact that charging their clients for all of their work is not possible. So let's be more specific about that. If a freelancer works, let's say, 40 hours for 0 hours a week, 15 to 25 of those hours usually are not pre-editing, translation, post-editing, and review. There is specialized research, lifelong learning, bookkeeping, correspondence, self-marketing, networking, cleaning your office, and many other things that are part of the workload but will never show off on any invoice. So the hint is to pay off all of these tasks indirectly by including them in the rates, which brings us to another problem. I can tell that many young freelancers who come talk to me still have doubts about the quality of their own work, which is understandable. They might think that their work is less valuable than the one of experienced colleagues, and as a consequence, they do not bid prices that are high enough. But this is dangerous. It's a wrong approach. Especially newcomers must try to achieve the same, perhaps even higher prices because they work more slowly, because they also need to cover their costs of living, and because of their status as newcomers, maybe a more intensive editing process might be required, and the reviewer also has to be paid for. So please be aware of that. Maybe let's put it another way. Appropriate prices are the basis for good quality. If the prices are poor, then the quality will probably also be poor because in this case, freelancers need to translate under time pressure to earn enough money, but they cannot afford working like that, being liable for every mistake they make. They also depend on their excellent quality of work in terms of word of mouth recommendations or viral marketing. So this is a big block of problematic informations, I know. If we combine all of this now with statistics demonstrating that most freelancers who need to stop their activity for economic reasons fail in the first 1 to 3 years of activity, then we should really question the strategies usually applied by newcomers when founding their businesses. That brings us to a more positive viewpoint. Personally, I am all for adopting an approach based on three main points when launching a professional activity as a freelancer. In my opinion, first, very first, we need to consider the standard of living that a freelancer wants to achieve. Then we need to talk about time and billing units. And thirdly, about the value of a text or a service for the client. So let's start with point one, the standard of living that you will want to achieve. First and foremost, freelancers need to know exactly how how much they will how much money they will use, what expenses they are going to have. They need to know their regular professional and private costs of all kinds, but they also need to know how much payments they will put into savings and investments that might be needed later in life, for example in retirement. I admit many of you might be very, very young and not thinking about retirement yet. But nevertheless, we need to understand, even at a young age in Europe, that we do not know what the future holds for our social systems and public safety belts. So please take precautions. Freelancers must understand right at the beginning of their career how much money they need to generate each month to have a good living for many years. So their income should be calculated in a way that it can provide security, comfort, and fun. A nice apartment, traveling, cultural activities, whatever is important to you, to anyone. It makes no sense to commit to a very frugal, to a simple life if you are not the person for that. You would soon feel deprived of the possibility to live the life you dream of, isn't it? So you need to do the maths. And for doing that, you need to know, so first your expenses, and then you need to know about the taxes and social security charges that are due in your country. An accountant, even at the beginning of your career, can be extremely helpful in compiling the basic information and gaining an overview. And when you have this overview, then you should calculate financial targets. Calculate an annual one and break it down to monthly ones. These targets are key figures. Let's call them indicators that will help you to achieve the economic success you're aiming at. They will also help you to control where you are. So that's really important. And it's also important not to forget to update them at least once every year. Now, if you are just setting foot in the language industry, you probably are not going to hit those targets soon or every single month of your work. That's quite normal. We know that in the European market, it takes an average of 3 to 5 years for a freelancer to make a full-time living of his or her work. That's normal. That does also mean that there can still be fluctuations even after years of activity. And that brings us to the second aspect I mentioned beforehand, time and billing units. So first, you should know how much time you need for any given task, text, and difficulty level. You can determine this by keeping track of time when you are working without distractions. If you're still a student at university, great. Test this with the work assignments your teachers give you and do it again and again and again, month after month. You will see progress, you will see first successes. The main point is to really know your own output per hour. And then you need to know how much money an hour of your competent work needs to bring in order to achieve your income targets. This is a simple method and it will help you to convert your monthly financial targets into rates. That's important. You really need to establish a link between your financial needs, your personal working time, your routines, and so on, and your rates. So please, it's all about you. Don't get confused by lower prices coming from others. I'm really serious about that. In the course of this self analysis, you may discover that there are several assignments that you would rather like to be paid for in units of time, for instance, in working hours or as projects. In this case, use your findings from the time records to calculate project prices on an estimated time basis. Personally, this seems the best method to me, much better than word rates, because after all, we are not selling single words like apples or jeans. We are selling texts as a complex product that needs to work as a whole. And there is a whole range of tasks that we do besides the text work that also needs to be paid for. So when tracking your work time and your figures, you may also find that the market segment you have chosen does not wholly pay off for you. That is, in fact, disappointing, but let's try to be realistic. In this presentation, it can happen. If this is the case, do not panic. Just rethink how you can fill your working hours differently in order to generate enough income. Keep your preferred activity, but combine it with other ones, synergetic ones in your working portfolio to solve the situation. A higher priced activity can balance out activities that are lower priced. So to give you a clear example, why only do literary translations if you like creative work and not reach out also for transcreation jobs? Why only do translation and proofreading but not also offer a cultural counseling service and so on? Also, services can be bundled in such a way that your available working time is used to maximum advantage, yours and that of your clients. So, for example, why only translate product descriptions and not give clients some trade fair support? Why only translate websites and not propose to implement them for your clients? Why only proofread content and not offer content management services and so on? And please think about a good client mix between direct clients and agencies. That can help. If you're in a financially weaker country, go even a step further. Try to find clients in financially strong markets. That might help too. So, to give a little bit of a resume, you have to be flexible and open minded. There are no limits to your creativity here, but keep doing what you like. Okay. So, last but surely not least, we come to aspect number 3, the value that your clients will accord to a text. A good approach is evaluating every single request in regards of who is the client. What are his needs or problems? How much value does she accord to a text? What is the person's budget? And so on. This kind of evaluation has to be done with every single client reaching out to you. You need to avoid that you underbid the client's willingness to pay. Always bid high enough. And allow me a hint, very often a simple phone call can better answer your questions than sending a bunch of emails. Clear communication and effective communication is really important, so never be afraid to speak orally with your clients. Now, is that a risk of bidding too high? Yeah, of course, but don't worry too much about that. What can happen if you bid too high? Well, either you both negotiate and you come a little closer together, but you just need to negotiate. Or you offer a tiny additional service that makes the given price seem more justified to your client. Or, that's my favorite, you simply explain to your clients how you calculated the price and what is included. Make them understand and make them even feel how they will benefit from the quality of your thinking and from the quality of your work. But what if there is a big gap between the budget of the client and your price? That's an interesting case. Then it's important to be aware that it is not a loss if you don't get the job. I know it's easy said, but I'm serious about that. You have a business plan, you have key figures, you have the revenue targets, and you know how much you need to earn. So ultimately, both parties are free. Neither freelancers nor clients have to accept every price. That's fine. And that's a healthy mindset to adopt. In doing differently, in applying going rates, underbidding others, or charging the same prices to every client, maybe even for years, we really harm ourselves and the market. So at this point, I come to my closing remarks. Translators should show more solidarity so that they support each other and also the market as a whole. And we really should abandon once and for all our personal discomfort with money, with pricing, and with negotiating. So, that being said, let me try to come back to the conference tool and to have a glimpse at the chat and to see if there are any questions. No worries. Geez, so true, so practical. Thank you very much for your feedback. We are speaking the same language, I see. One important point on word rates per hour, it all depends on the text type. Yeah, of course. If you have a long text with many repetitive elements, your hourly turnover will be completely different from a text with condensed information like a scientific abstract. Yeah, absolutely. That's why you need to do the time recording and the tracking with different types of assignments, different types of texts, and you need to find out what is more advantageous to you. Even talking about German, because Birgit Hoffmann, you might come from Germany or Austria, we have long words. For us, line rates might be a good basis of calculation. So we need to evaluate again and again what is more advantageous for us. And we need to explain it to our clients. Okay. Thank you for the nice words. Okay. How can you approach a negotiating process without scaring a potential client off? Oh, you can always scare them off. The risk is there. It can happen. But the focal point is not to be afraid about it. I mean, if you really have a client who wants to negotiate and go down, 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 to a certain level that just will not allow you to survive, it doesn't help to have good negotiating strategies. You can explain them the importance of the work. You can tell them that you are liable for the mistakes. You can talk about culture. You can talk about your formation. You can talk about adherence to professional associations. You can talk about the quality. You can tell them that you have a reviewer who you are paying. I mean, there are many, many, many arguments, but the focal point is not to be negotiating with this fear of losing a client. If you lose a client, you will find another one. That was very short and very fast, I know. If you want to get in touch about that, just put me through a mail. Okay. Sandrine, do sometimes some types of text require more hourly rates than others? Yeah, there are different philosophies there. There are people saying an hour of work does always need to have the same price. But but there are also people saying that different services, when difficulty levels are going up and so on, the prices should go up. And I'm in the second group. So I would really evaluate every single text in function of the client's needs. If I have lots of responsibility about the text, if I really need to put in lots of creativity, if there are slogans, if there are things that need much more of my competent work than, let's say, a business letter and so on, I will also propose higher hourly rates. Yeah, of course I will do. Alice, how do you find direct clients? I only ever find offers from agencies. Yeah, I feel like direct clients would be more profitable and interesting. Absolutely, absolutely. You need to call them. You need to have recommendations. You need to do extensive and exhaustive research. You will pass hours and days on your computer finding out companies in the field of specialization that you have chosen. And of course, this is really very time consuming, but it is paying out. We have statistics that show that translators who are mainly working for direct clients have much better revenues in the end of the month and of the years than translators who are only working for agencies. So a good ratio might be 50% to 50% or 40-60 or 30-70. You need to find out for yourself, and finding the direct client really means doing the research, putting in the time. How can I really pinpoint the kind of translation I'm most interested in, enjoy? Could you send me an email about that question, please? Because it's a huge one. I'll just put in one sentence. In general, I'm saying to my students, think and rethink what you really like to do. In general, what you like to do, you will do it very well. If you do it very well, you will find clients, you will find a network and so on. But how to find out what is most near to you, that's a very personal process. So I'd really like to get in touch with you directly about that. Is that okay for you? Attend conferences and fairs where people from the domain you are interested meet. Yeah, of course. Okay. Perspectives, openness. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much. You know, I'm doing what I shouldn't have done. I'm staying here too long. Your follow-up sessions have already started. So I think we are running out of time and we should stop. But if you want to get in touch, don't worry, send me an email. Please be a little bit patient. There might be many requests. And I know I was rushing through the questions, but send me an email. I will answer every mail I will receive within a few days and I will come back to you. You know me now, you have my mail. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for the nice and very kind feedback. Thank you.